going on, everybody? Thanks for hanging out with us for this Every Dollar budgeting live stream.
Whoop, whoop.
George, I feel different. It's live. We're in the morning.
It feels like it's too early for this.
I feel like a whole different person. This is great. Well, guys.
You're a morning person, so that helps.
Am I? I don't know that I am.
You're up at 5 a.m. doing quiet time, helping at the old folks' home, going on your run.
I'm taking care of screaming children. So if that's the same thing.
It's all a ministry. This is fun.
Well, man, it's good to be here with you guys. Today, we're talking about all of your budgeting questions, but not only that, but how budgeting actually in the long term helps you to build wealth, which is really exciting for a lot of folks.
That's the key. We don't budget just because we're nerds. We budget because we want to build wealth and leave a legacy and accomplish our money goals.
That's the anthem. All right. So we're going to keep this whole thing to about an hour. We want to respect your time and get you to work or whatever it is that you have to do today. And if you want to ask questions to me or George, just give us a call. The number is 844-283-9379, and we will hook you up with the answers. All right.
And you can leave your questions in the chat as well. And producer James is in there. He's going to be pulling some of the best ones, and we'll answer those as well, which is something we never do.
That's true. And if you call and you don't get in, just leave a message on the answering machine, and we'll pick you up at another point. So there's a lot of options here.
Hey, it's Jade. Leave a message. That's what you just did right there, the old school voicemail.
I love it. So like George said, the whole point in budgeting is so that we can build wealth. And there's 4 ways that Every Dollar is going to help you build wealth. By the way, Every Dollar is the budgeting tool that we will be using today and for all time, because we think that Every Dollar is the best budgeting tool out there. And it does help you build wealth, George. It gives you a written plan. That's the whole, number one. It gives you a written plan. You need a plan because no one is accidentally going to win. You don't just accidentally, like Dave says, win the Super Bowl. You have to have a plan in order to do that. And we know that 93% of millionaires stick to a budget.
That's big.
That's the stats.
Yeah, people think, well, I either make too much to be budgeting or I don't make enough to be budgeting, and therefore everyone justifies why they don't need a written plan. I'm like, no. People that build wealth use the budget to get there, and the way they keep the wealth is by using a budget to stay there.
Yeah. You can't just, go like this in the dark and hope that you're going to find your way to wealth. You have to have a plan.
You need a plan.
Number 2, George, it puts you in control of your number 1 wealth building tool, which we all know, say it together, our income. Number 1 wealth building tool is your income, and Every Dollar gives every dollar a job. And every dollar an assignment.
Truly, I think most people that call on the show, they're just scattered. And we tell them, hey, put it on paper. It just helps you get it all out there and look at actual facts instead of how you feel about what you spent on food that month. And so it actually gave me so much confidence when I realized it was all on paper and I can control these variables.
Yeah, I love it. Where there's no vision, the people perish. Where there's no vision, your money perishes. It goes to Target to die. It goes to the mall to die.
To Amazon.
Okay.
Uber Eats.
So give it a plan, give it a vision. Number 3, George, it helps you get out and stay out of debt. Now, that's what I'm talking about. Being on a budget is the guide for you to getting out of debt. When you send your paychecks to the bank, you're paying interest instead of earning interest. And so let's flip the script on that. Let's pay off debt so that we're the ones building compound interest and we're not continuing to pay Capital One in interest or CarMax in interest. I love that.
And Every Dollar helps you lay out that debt snowball at the bottom of your budget, and you can see exactly how much you're making in minimum payments, how you can throw more at those debts to knock them out using the snowball method, and that is really the key. When you see people on the debt-free stage, we say, what's the key? They say it's the budget. That was the key to getting out of debt.
Major keys. I love it. All right. And finally, George, number 4, the budget helps you live on less than you make, which we know that is the formula. You have to live on less than you make. And when you do that, you create margin in your life and in your budget so that you can do those things that make us fiscally and financially responsible adults. We can do things like invest and save. We mentioned paying off debt, but all of those things that are really part of having a full financial picture. You can buy the right insurances that you need because some of us are just out here flapping in the wind, George. So you have this money saved up through margin, and you're going to find that margin when you create your Every Dollar budget. So
a plan, vision, margin, control, confidence. What is there not to love about a budget?
I'm ready.
So great.
I kind of wanted to high five after that, George.
We can.
Yes. Love that.
I'm not very athletic, so I'm always just nervous I'll miss somehow even sitting right next to you.
It was a pretty firm. That was pretty good, George.
I let you go 90. I went 10.
I love it. All right. So, George, let's kick it off with the most common question that you guys ask us. I mean, across the board, this is what we hear day in and day out. They say, Jade, George, how in the world do I budget for the first time? I've never done this before. How am I supposed to get started? It's just a lot. can you help me?
This feels like showing someone your favorite movie. You're like, I just can't wait. And then
can't
they have
wait.
commentary the whole way through. You're like, you're ruining this for me. We're going to try not to ruin it for you.
The fact is, it's not difficult. I think it's the unknown that makes it scary. But once you open up everydollar, which we're going to do here, matter of fact, Bobby, if you can pull that up. Bobby's in the background. He should pulling
be in the foreground.
strings.
He has a wonderful beard, but he's back there and he's going to control like the Wizard of Oz.
That's right.
Pull the strings for us so we don't screw it up. And so he's going to show us from the very first thing you see when you make an everydollar account having a fully fleshed out budget.
All right, Bobby, you beautiful individual, show us how to do it.
Oh, we got a real scrunched up screen on my end. Is that true? Can anyone confirm?
Listen,
squeezed.
Smooth that bad boy out. There we go.
We're getting there.
We open it up. Hello, George, from Rachel
that's
Cruz,
nice
which
that
is
they
really
use
awesome.
my name. That feels good. Rachel never says hello to me, so this feels good.
It's great. So it's just going to ask you some questions about yourself. What's most important to you right now? And you can decide. Most people are paying off debt, so let's go with that one, Bobby.
Perfect.
All right. Now it's going to come in here and it's going to ask you some of your goals. Tell us about you. What do you want to do? Let's say that you're renting right now because you have debt. And let's say that you have a car, something. Yeah, There we go. And then that sounds good. Let's do that.
Keep going.
Now tell us about your lifestyle. Now,
okay, we're going to skip connecting to the bank. That's a premium feature. We'll just go with the free version. Keep it simple.
All right.
This is the big part. Income minus expenses equals zero. That's what a zero-based budget's all about.
And can I just note, put all the money in here. Don't try to save some that you keep in your head like, yeah, but that's my bonus and I'm going to do something with that later. Put everything in the income.
And this is take-home pay.
Yes.
So not your gross pay, but what actually ends up in your bank account should be reflected in your budget in this income category. And that's every single one of her paychecks and your paychecks and the side hustle money and that bonus and that random Venmo that came through.
And it would behoove you to space them all out. Like if you get 5 separate checks, put 5 separate ones and you can click the add income button there if you want to add more. And trust me, you're going to want to do that because we're going to utilize those individual paychecks later.
Very rarely does each person get one big check for the month.
Right.
They're getting 2 or 3.
But for some reason, people like to group it all together. So separate them out and
All right. So we've got our income. And now we get to the good part, the expenses. So this is where you list out, the basics. And a lot of people, Jade, this is where they get thrown off. Because well, my water bill, it changes every month, Jade. So I can't do a budget.
Yeah, you can.
It's a variable
do a new
expense.
budget every single month, George. Tell them.
So you know what that bill is going to be. I just got an email today for what my electric bill will be.
That's right.
And so that's what I enter. And if you're not sure right now, just take a guess, take an estimate, look up your bank statements the last 3 months, take an average. You know that in the wintertime, the gas bill might be higher. In the summertime, the electric bill might be higher.
And if you're off, it's a good thing that you can put in a category there called miscellaneous or called cushion or extra.
And this is all in pencil right now. You can always change that amount later on if you figure out, that bill was higher than I thought.
That's right. I love it. So we finally got the budget up and running. Guys, that took us less than 5 minutes. So go ahead and do that.
And the first one always takes the longest. Like the first budget may take you an hour to pull all this together.
True that.
But the second one, you'll be done in 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't wig out on this. Just start little at a time. Matter of fact, if you know, hey, I'm going to sit down and do my budget tonight, go ahead and pull up your bank statements because then you'll be able to have everything right there at your disposal. You'll be able to see what you spent the last month and start plugging those numbers in. So,
all right, we're back.
Let's
got
go.
this. We got our expenses plugged in, our insurances, the phone, the trash, the groceries, the restaurants. This is a big one, Jade. People go, groceries, I'm going to say $200 a month.
Oh no, a good budget.
This isn't Price is Right. We don't just guess and try to not hit the number.
You got to be realistic. If you're not realistic with these numbers, especially on the variable expenses like groceries, you're just setting yourself up to fail. If you're a family of 4, you're not going to fit into a $200 grocery, a single, an
Some
unmarried
might do it. That'd
single
be
budget.
impressive.
No, if you can, I have
If
questions
it's just
about what you're eating.
PB&J from Aldi for the whole month, you might be able to swing that.
Oh, but health is wealth, George.
Oh, yeah. Oh, childcare, that's always a tough one for people. That's what
Childcare is a
throws off the
biggie.
budget.
Look,
You've got to plan for it.
If this person did it for $700, I'm proud of them. That's good.
That's really impressive.
Miscellaneous, yes. That miscellaneous category is so important because we talked about the flexibility of the budget. And if you have a category that you accidentally you misplanned the water bill and instead of it being $72, it's $82. Well, you have a cushion there in that miscellaneous for that $10 or $20 here and there. All right, so we've got that locked in. Bobby, let's go to the spending categories.
You built your first budget and have $1,800 left over. Heck yes. So this is a great problem to have. Some of you might do this budget for the first time and you're in the red and you don't have enough to cover. Well, that's good because you just saw the truth and reality of your financial situation, and it may explain why you've been going into debt every month to cover the bills on the credit cards.
That's a word.
So either way, it's helpful information. If you have more, that's great. Let's apply that to your next goal, your next baby step. If you don't have enough, we've got to find margin in here, and that might mean we tell people, sell the car, get the side job, cut the subscriptions. Stop eating out 7 times a week.
Facts. That's so true, George. Yeah. The budget is like blood work. It tells all. It tells where the problems lie. It tells where you're sick. So let's pull that budget back up. And don't forget at the end, you need to add in your debts.
Yes.
Now, when you add these debts in, it's going to ask you for the name of the debt. It's going to ask you the type of debt. So is it a credit card? Is it an auto loan? It wants to know what you currently owe on it, and it wants to know your monthly payment, your minimum monthly payment, and then you might have to log into CarMax.com or wherever it is to get your interest rate, or open up that statement, and then your original balance will be there as well. And so you're going to list all your debts here, and we talked about it earlier. That's your debt snowball. You list them from smallest to largest. You make minimum payments on all of them, but throw the most money and margin that you can find to the smallest debt. So that's how that works. Bobby is loading in, just some typical debts, because most people, George, have credit cards and car notes. And so he's going to add that in. And in the meantime, why don't we go to our first call?
Let's do it. We got Jordan to kick it off. In
Los
LA.
Angeles. What's going on, Jordan?
Hey, good morning.
What's up?
How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks.
How can we help today?
Well, I was calling to find out more about how much to set aside for a household budget. And you kind of answered it a little bit this morning with the miscellaneous category. Mm-hmm. But things come up, and it's hard to separate those things in the budget. And so, yeah, that's what I was calling about.
Are you looking for like percentages of what you should be spending?
Yes, that would be great to have some peace, knowing that at least I put aside something for those things that come up.
So are you talking about emergencies or like a sinking fund for repairs, or are these like, hey, I don't know how much I should be spending on food?
I think repairs, I think household things like soap, things for the baby. These are things that aren't typically budgeted in our house, and so they keep coming up and taking out from other categories.
You should be budgeting for it. I always say that a good budget should be detailed, realistic, and flexible. So the detailed part of that is, if Bobby pulls it up right quick, where you see all of these categories, there is a place that you can add things like, home goods, or,
household
items, or, skincare, or whatever it is that you want.
Toiletries.
Put that on there. The same way that I said before, to add all the money that you think you're going to get into the income category and to split it all out. It's the same thing, Jordan, with things like that. Every single month, if you're going to need, I hope you're going to need some soap and some lotion and some deodorant and something to make you smell good. And so if you think that you might spend $50 a month on that for your family, add it to the budget. Anything, and this is for anybody listening, anything that you might and think that you could possibly spend money on, put it on the budget. And if the month goes by and you didn't spend it, great. Throw it to whatever baby step you're on. So it's okay if you put something on the budget and you don't actually end up using it or all of the money that you set aside.
Yes, and that miscellaneous category can help. And then also not making a giant shopping category, because that may be overwhelming.
Right.
And
Detail
instead,
it out.
detailing it. If you know, you're like, hey, we're Target people, you can make a Target line item.
Yeah.
You go, you have $100 to spend at Target for all the things.
Ooh, I love
and
that.
you could even separate it out with everydollar. You can split an expense to go, hey, we bought clothes at Target, so that's going to go in the clothing budget, but we also bought food at Target, and that's going to go in the food budget.
Yeah. Hey,
you
Bobby,
can split it.
Can you show that? So let's say that you went to Amazon and you had a transaction. So for all intents and purposes, Bobby's going to add a transaction.
He's going to make a fake manual transaction for us.
Yeah. He's going to say that we spent $100 at Amazon. Now, if you have Bank Connect, it would come in automatically. If you don't have Bank Connect, you would have to go in and say, I know that I spent $100 at Amazon, but part of it was on groceries and part of it was on clothing. And so you could actually go in and split it up and say, okay, I did $50 on groceries and the other $50 was on clothing. And that way you can truly see, at the end of the month or, at the end of the year, you can go back through in everydollar and see, what am I really spending my money on? And if you go over there, Bobby, it'll show you the percentages broken down of how you're spending your money, which is really cool to see. And if for some reason, see how those are all giving, savings, bills. If you look at that and you're like, I want it to split even further, then you just have to change your categories and set up another group.
I might have like a housing category, a utilities category, and then a subscriptions category.
Yeah.
Or I have one called lifestyle, and that's where I kind of put these, little ankle biter subscriptions and just kind of the fun entertainment things.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully that answers the question.
It just needs to work for you. That's the key. It doesn't need to be aligned to the Ramsey way. And truthfully, people ask us for budget percentages, and there's only a few that we talk about, Jade, and one is giving. We recommend right off the top, make it a priority, 10% of your income to giving. And when you're ready to invest, once you're out of debt with an emergency fund, 15% toward a retirement, which means it may never even hit your budget because that's usually coming out of your paycheck before it hits your bank.
That's good. That's a good point.
And then the last one would be for housing. Try to spend no more than 25% of your income on that rent, the mortgage, and that includes with the mortgage, principal, interest, homeowners insurance, taxes, and HOA.
All of it rolled into a nice 25% bow.
Yes.
I know.
Other than that, James, can you pull up my screen? Let's see if this works. I've got a blog that we have that will help you. Our team has pulled averages based on a lot of data sources and research. So this is my screen here. You can see we lay all this out. So we're going to put this in the description, the show notes for you guys to go check out if you want to check out this blog.
That's cool.
But it shows you the averages. So you go, all right, am I on track for a family of four, $971 for food? For a single person, $314. And so it doesn't have to be spot on. Your life is going to be different. Your childcare numbers may be closer to 2,500 if you're in a big city, and they may be closer to 900 if you got one kid in a smaller city.
Yeah, that's helpful. I like it. All right, George, we've got some questions that came in through the chat as well. So
let's see what we got in the chat.
We got Joanne Grady. She says, if I have unspent money from the budget categories at the end of the month, do I add up the remaining balances and transfer that amount of money into my savings account at the end? Let's see. I'm trying to see. Into my savings account at the end.
At the bank, then zero them out from here. Okay. So she's saying I've got leftover money. Let's say you had $200 for groceries. You only spent $150. What do you do with the $50?
Ooh,
and she's saying, do I move that into savings? I would either apply that to the next month's budget in a category or apply it to your goal.
I'd apply it to whatever baby step
you're trying to get
on.
out of debt. Let's put it there.
Heck yeah. At the end of the day, whenever we find margin, whenever we find extra money, that's where the baby steps really come into play. So if you're on baby step 1 and you're trying to get $1,000 saved and you get to the end of February and you're like, wait a second, I have $25 saved up here. I have an extra $123 here. Put it towards your baby step and start stacking that up as quickly as possible. And I want to make this clear. When you first start budgeting, there is a part of it, we talk about the baby steps a lot, but if you've never budgeted before, George, part of the rhythm is just getting to the point where you're learning to live on what you make. It's the first budget is not the time to make these big sweeping changes and to try to go just balls to the wall the first time. When you do your first budget, it's like, okay, I make, I get 2 paychecks. Each one is $2,600. I'm just going to try to live on that money and call it a success when you get to the end of the month and you did it and you stuck to it and you didn't go into the red. And then the next month you're feeling a little bit better. So you're like, all right, I'm going to start getting these baby steps moving and I'm going to start cutting back little by little. Again, sweeping changes is a recipe for failure. So I'm just going to start cutting back a little bit more. And then before you know it, 2 or 3 months in, you're actually doing this thing, you're budgeting and you're feeling confident about the fact that you can live on what you make.
Yes, it's
and
not
less than you make.
This is not a born talent to budget. It takes 90 days to get this dialed in. So if you guys aren't using EveryDollar to budget yet, you can go to everydollar.com/free and get started with your free budgeting account and app and download it on your smartphone. Share the login with your spouse, and both of you need to be paying attention to this if you've got a spouse. This cannot be one person's thing and the spouse is like, well, he handles the budget. Ooh. That's how you get into something called financial infidelity. And it's not to say they're a terrible person, but we need that accountability to make good choices.
That's right.
It's part of the reason God created marriage.
Yeah,
we need that accountability in our life.
You both have something to add.
Find a friend who wants to also grow in their money journey and have some accountability together to kind of, hey, call them before you make that Amazon purchase and go talk me off the ledge.
That's so
good.
I
really need another Stanley tumbler?
George, tell them about your SMART framework, about how you make smart spending choices.
So I cover this in Financial Peace University in the Wise Spending lesson, but it's just 5 easy questions you can ask yourself before you make a purchase, before it comes out of the budget. The S spells out smart. The S is for self-awareness.
Yes.
Is this really going to add value to my life? If you can say yes, the M is for motive. Am I buying this for the right reason? Woo! Is it boundaries, pressure, retail therapy?
You want to show it off?
Tough day at work? Make sure you're doing it for the right motive. Number 3 is the A for affordability. Is this in my budget?
A.
Can I afford this in full, in cash, today? And if you say no, you got to wait until you have the money, until it's the right time.
Love it.
The next one is the R for research. Is this the best option, retailer, and price? Too many people are just willy-nilly, impulsively clicking on the next thing they see instead of taking the time to actually look up a promo code or see if other retailers have a better option or a generic brand we can get. And then finally, if you say yes to that, the T is for timing. Is now the time to buy it? Where are we at with our baby steps, our priorities, opportunity cost? If we spend $5,000 on the vacation, well, we can't pay off the debt and we can't fully fund the Roth IRA. And so you've got to think about those questions.
Ooh, such good choices there and good information, George. Let's go straight to the phone lines. We've got Connor in Omaha, Nebraska. What's going on, Connor?
Connor.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing good. Thanks for being here this morning.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
How can we help?
So, really my only question is I work in sales, and so my salary fluctuates or my commission fluctuates every month. That could be anywhere between as little as $3,000 up to maybe $5,000-$6,000 a month.
Okay.
In commission. And so I guess my question is, what's the best way to budget things, especially when I do have lower months?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's one that a lot of people face. I know I've been on irregular income my entire life. And not only is the amount irregular, but many times it was when I actually receive it is irregular. So it's like on both sides of it. And EveryDollar is great with that. So if we pull up EveryDollar, George, you want to pull yours up or Bobby, either one?
Sure. I think Bobby has a nice budget already fleshed out for us. So he can pull that up and show, we have his paycheck, her paycheck, but 1 month it might be lower, 1 month it might be higher. And so the key here, Connor, is to look at your actual expenses for the month. And so if you have expenses, the bare bones, what you need to keep the lights on, food, utilities, shelter, transportation, insurance, all of that, you know that number, right?
Yes.
What is that number? Can you tell us?
Yeah, that number ends up being around $1,500 a month.
Oh, great.
Wait, that include your mortgage and everything?
Yeah, I pay rent. I pay my car. I haven't fully paid my car off yet. Insurance, all that.
Wow,
That's
your
great.
entire month of expenses
Living
is
lean.
$1,500.
Well, if you include food and all that, it's a little more.
So you got to include everything.
You have to include I'm talking about what it takes for you to live for 30 days.
Oh, sure.
Is that closer to
it's
two,
closer
three?
to like $2,000.
Okay.
$2,000.
So that becomes your safety number. If I make at least $2,000 in net income, I can cover the month, right?
Yes.
Have you had a month where you didn't make $2,000?
No, I've had a month where it's maybe like 2,500.
Okay.
I think
So it's slim.
So that's the key with the regular income is you plan based on the lowest amount you think you'll make. And so you list your income out. And again, it can always change. It's likely going to go up versus down. And then you're going to list your expenses. But what you're going to do with a regular income is make a prioritized spending plan. And so the first thing that needs to get paid is those 4 walls: food, utilities, shelter, transportation, probably followed by insurance because we need to make sure all of that's paid. Then minimum payments on the debts. And then beyond that, it's all of the other things that might fall into that budget. And so that helps you make a priority. And if you have the extra money come in, extra $1,000, let's throw it at the debt. And if you don't make as much, well, at least we have that covered. And the other thing, Jade, that helps people is the peaks and valley kind of fund, where if you have a great month, set some of that money aside to cover you in the lean months.
Yeah, if I'm in your situation, Connor, I'm always having, obviously you're in baby step 2, so you're paying off debt, but because of the nature of your work and because you do have these months where you earn less and months where you earn more, I'd probably make it a point that I always have just that cushion of that $2,000 sitting there. So if you have a month where things get really low and you only brought in $1,000, you've got that money there sitting and you're always replenishing that. And you're always sitting on an extra month's budget because the nature of how you earn money is so fluctuating.
That's huge. And there's also, in the premium version of EveryDollar, we have a paycheck planning tool, which really helps those with a regular income, because it helps you sort of plan out, hey, am I going to run out of money before the month is over based on where my bills fall?
Yeah.
And then it helps you adjust all of those. So that's a great feature if you want to check that out in EveryDollar Premium.
Yeah, and to go further into that, because that is such a great feature for EveryDollar Premium. It's basically, George, people ask me all the time, can't I just budget by paycheck? Like, can't I just budget each paycheck? And I'm thinking, well, when you do paycheck planning, that's essentially what you're doing. You're creating a budget for the month, but you're planning when you actually spend the money, and you're doing it based off of each paycheck. And so at the end of the day, you're kind of killing two birds with one stone, because I truly think a lot of people do their budget and they're like, yes, I did my budget, this is great. And then if they don't know when to actually spend that money based on when they get paid, you can find yourself in a pickle, and you can find yourself in a moment where you're like, I know I planned for this, but why is there no money in the account? So when you go through and plan the paychecks and when you can spend, it gives you a lot more peace, and it's kind of the full circle of the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's show them paycheck planning.
Yeah, the key here, Jade, is, if you have a mortgage of $1,600 and the paycheck's $1,500, well, you can't budget based on that $1,500 alone, because you're going to run out of money real quick. And so you have to look at the whole picture. So Bobby's going to show us the premium version of EveryDollar here and go into paycheck planning. You'll see we have a buffer here from the previous month of expenses, and you can see the green bars. If you're watching, you'll see the green bars start to dwindle as we run out of money from that paycheck. And you can see this is based on when each of these are falling. So a lot of people, Jade, have bills that fall on the first of the month. Well, what's cool is that a lot of the bills can actually move. You can call the company or jump online and change the due date for some of these.
Yeah, that's
within
right.
a reasonable amount of time. You can't be like, I don't want to pay it this month.
Yeah.
But you might be able to adjust it within a 2-week period.
Yeah, or you can break it up. Things like groceries, you're not going to spend all your grocery money at one shot. You could break it into separate weeks. So
you can see we have a high risk of overspending with this current budget, because that mortgage comes out on the 11th. And so what if we said, hey, we're going to call the mortgage company and pay this on the 19th instead, and there's no penalty for that? Well, look what happens. Now we have a low risk of overspending because we moved that bill behind the paycheck instead of in front of it.
Yeah, I love this.
That's the key with paycheck planning.
That's what's missing from a lot of people's budgets. So if you have EveryDollar and you don't have the premium version, you should definitely consider it. But EveryDollar as it is works just fine as well.
Yes, that's a good reminder. You can use the free version for your whole life and track your transactions manually, but the premium version has a lot of cool features that our teams worked hard on to make budgeting even easier. And I love the bank connectivity especially.
All right, George, we've got some chat questions here. This one comes from AB. They say, is it weird to have 3 accounts for savings? One's for house repair, one's for car repair, and one is an emergency fund.
I don't think it's weird.
I don't think it's weird. I mean, whatever works for you.
I wouldn't have like 40, but I think 3 is reasonable.
Yeah, especially, I definitely think that you should have a separate savings account for your emergency fund. Full stop. Like that,
Yes.
You got to keep that money in a separate place. And then from there, if you have sinking funds, which it sounds like this is what he has a sinking fund for home repair, a sinking fund for car repair. I'll be honest. Now, we don't sponsor Ally Bank in any way, shape, or form, but I use Ally Bank because you can separate the money into buckets. It's one savings account, but it delineates it into buckets, so it's really clear. And I do that just so that I don't have 12 savings accounts.
Well, then it gets confusing. You're like, well, how much of this is the emergency fund versus the car repair fund versus the house renovation fund? And so I like keeping it separate. So I think it's actually wise to do that. And if you want to keep it in an entirely separate savings account, that's totally fine. Some people choose to have their sinking funds sit in checking and build up over time. But some people might use that money impulsively and go, look, there's leftover money. No. We have to earmark it so that we don't touch that cookie jar before the cookies are ready.
When it comes to savings, there's a couple of practices that I think really do help if you're on baby step 1 or baby step 3. Baby step 1 being getting $1,000 saved, baby step 3 being saving up 3 to 6 months of expenses. I definitely think that, like we said, you need to keep it in a separate account. That's one purchase, George, that I do automate. Like, when your money comes in, automate the amount the day you get paid to automatically go over to savings. So there's no question. There's no, you don't wait till the end of the month and see what's left and then save
You're
that.
Not hoping and praying.
Yeah, you're paying yourself first, so to speak. And so I do think that setting up an auto draft, auto transfer over to savings is really, really important. And number 3, obviously budgeting for savings. Don't just get to the end of the month and say, well, if there's money left, I'll save it. No, you've got to have a line item on your budget for savings, whether you're in baby step 1, baby step 3. Usually baby step 4 is something that comes out automatically through our job, so we don't necessarily see that on the budget, but that's how this works. Maybe if you're on baby step 6 and you're doing extra mortgage payments, again, all of this, you want it to be reflected on the budget because that is your plan and it's telling you how you're going to spend your money.
That's huge. Another chat question?
Another chat question. Let's see. Shanette N says, should we include our mortgage in the debt category as well as in the bill section? So technically, when we talk about baby step 2, it is paying off all of your debt except your mortgage.
All the consumer debt.
It's all your consumer debt. So if you wanted to, Bobby, pull up the budget here. If you wanted to list it down there, you could. Just know that it's at the bottom of your... It's not even at the bottom of your debt snowball.
Yeah, you don't want to double up. I would leave it just in your housing section, that mortgage or rent as kind of that fixed expense, because you're not gonna pay extra on the mortgage until you're in baby step 6, which means you've already paid off all the consumer debt. You have the emergency fund. You're investing 15%. Then we can start attacking the mortgage, and even then, I had a different, under savings goal, or I would have extra mortgage payoff.
Oh, so you didn't add it as a...
I just kind of made it a separate
down
thing.
there.
And so that helped me see, here's my normal mortgage, and here's what I want to put extra toward it. So I like keeping it separate from the consumer debt category and the snowball. Just leave it up there in the housing. Boom. And savings, extra house payment. So that could be it.
Works.
That's exactly what we did, and that helped us pay off the house early.
I love it. All right. Hopefully that answers your question. We've got another one here from Saving Stuff with Stephanie. Is that like your business name? That's
Saving
fun.
Stuff.
I'm saving and stuff. All right. She says, is $600 a month on groceries for 3 people reasonable or too much? Listen, at the end of the day, number one, Stephanie, I don't know where you live. If you live in, Kansas, it's different than if you live in New York City, right? So prices change. Also, another thing to consider is how old are your kids? If you have a 16-year-old boy, that boy can eat, as opposed to if you have a 1-year-old who, just finished nursing, so there's a lot of variables when it comes to what you're spending on groceries. At the end of the day, it's one of those situations where George gave us, kind of some parameters there. Again, they're parameters. At the end of the day, what you're going to do is you're going to look at your groceries and you're going to just answer yourself honestly and say, if I'm in baby step 2, if I'm trying to save up in baby step 3, is there a place that I can pull back on this? And if you find that there's a place that you can pull back and you're still, your family's still in a healthy place, you're still, doing fine, then do it. But if you're looking and you're like, listen, we're eating peanut butter and jelly as it is, and we're eating, noodles with butter and Parmesan cheese as it is, then you probably are fine and you don't need to pull back any further.
I do think it's worth, because Jade, you're health conscious. I think it's worth calling out that we want you to eat quality foods. So don't just buy junk food because it's cheap and it keeps the family afloat. When we say rice and beans, we're talking about a mentality that you're not going to overspend on food. We're not going to buy the super expensive stuff, but eating whole foods is great. And if you guys want to pull up the blog again, I have it on my screen here. This is our kind of budget percentages blog where we help people go, here's what the averages are. So you can see singles age 19 to 50 spend $300 to $370. Couples 19 to 50 spend around $685. Families of 4 spend around $971 for the thrifty plan, according to the BLS. So that is like you're doing really well if you can make that work. So a family of 3 for $600 feels very reasonable.
I think so. I think that feels very reasonable because there's some stats that say a family of 4, because usually I think the USDA looks at it on like thrifty, which is like least expensive, medium, and then kind of premium as you're buying your groceries. And if you're in the medium area, you're spending somewhere between $900 and $1,200 for a family of 4, which is like, okay, like if you're in baby step 3, that's a good place to be. You've kind of gone out of the thrifty zone. You're getting into, you're starting to live your life a little bit more. And
if you're deeply in debt, I would lean towards the thrifty side.
Plan. But like George said, and I cannot say it enough, baby step 2 is not an excuse to eat crap. Like, don't be out here eating fast food and eating ramen noodles every day. You have to live. The whole point of this is that we're living our best life. We're living like no one else. So later we can actually live like no one else. And you being in a hospital with high blood pressure is not living like no one else.
And
so
that also it's more expensive to eat unhealthy long term.
That's right.
Because of the ramifications and the healthcare costs. So, and Life insurance. Your life insurance is cheaper
Okay.
when you're healthy.
Yeah.
I want to get that A+
I know, that's right.
rate. You
Give
know what
me
I'm
that
saying?
clean blood work. That's right.
No
Okay.
smoker here. I'm not touching the stuff, Jade. I'm above the influence.
I love it. Let's go to Jennifer. She's in Albany, New York. What's going on, Jennifer? How can we help?
Hi. So I'm actually wondering, I'm very consistently over budget every month. My expenses are way more than what I make.
Uh-huh.
And I'm expecting to double my income around May when I graduate nursing school. So
Good.
I just want to know if I should be sticking it through or...
Well, I see on here, so you sent us your numbers ahead of time. And do I have permission to kind of talk about it on the air?
Absolutely.
Okay. So it looks like right now you're making around $2,000 a month, right?
That's your net income?
Yeah, because I'm unable to do overtime due to, full-time school.
Sure.
Okay, so that's what you're bringing home. But when you get out of school, you'll be making around $4,000, right?
Yeah, at the bare minimum.
So when I looked at your numbers, it looks like every month you're kind of in the red, a little over $600. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Okay. And my guess is, how are you filling that gap? Is that credit cards?
I'm kind of just like alternating what gets paid and what doesn't.
Okay,
So you're in collections on some of these?
Just one.
Okay. And I
And
see
actually,
here.
one of those is paid off.
Good. Okay, so you've got a bunch of credit cards, you've got some student loans, a personal loan, medical debt, and a gigantic auto loan.
Yes.
You have
Let's
been
talk about
driving.
that.
You've been driving in style, Jennifer.
I found out afterwards to not have a car that's, most of your income.
What did
yeah,
this
we're
car
gonna
cost
call
you?
you out.
What was the cost of the car, Jennifer?
So I've had it less than a year, so it's pretty
What-
darn close
what-
to what you're seeing there.
30,000?
$31,000, and you make 40.
Yeah.
That's a problem. That's $742 a month, and you make 2,000.
If you were to sell it today, what would you get for it? Private party.
19.
Ooh,
you're
you
wet-
rolled negative equity?
It's very negative, yeah.
Oh.
Yipes.
And I'm guessing you have nothing in savings.
Nope.
Okay. Well, the good news is your income is about to go up in May, which is only, 2-3 months away.
Right.
The bad news is we need a plan right now to get you out of this underwater situation where you're going to send more debts to collections. Correct?
Okay.
So are any of these old enough that you could settle, or are these all pretty fresh debts?
I mean, the personal loan is pretty old, and a lot of those credit cards have been open for years.
Okay. Are you still using the credit cards?
No.
Okay.
What about the medical debt? You can always settle that.
The problem with the medical debt is I've been trying to find it. I'm not
so it's
sure.
some collections
Have you
agency
pulled
has
your
it.
credit report lately?
I have, but not from like a reliable source. I don't feel that Credit Karma is very reliable.
Well, no, go to annualcreditreport.com. You can pull your credit report from all three bureaus for free, and that will give you a really accurate picture of what all of your debts currently are and what you owe. So that would be step one. And then as you lay out your every dollar budget, you need to see exactly how far you're behind every single month based on making all minimum payments on your debts and based on covering all of your required, food, utilities, shelter, transportation, your phone bill, gas, insurance. And if you're still behind, we need to cut some things down, at least temporarily.
Or you've got to find some way to bring some money in. $600 a month is a lot, but it's not a lot. That's 2 days of Ubering or 2 days of Instacart or doing a job that you really don't want to do in order, because what can't happen is you can't keep living at a $600 deficit. That's just driving you into collections, driving you into debt. And it's stressful to live like that. Let's be honest, right?
Absolutely. Another factor that kind of plays into all of this is the fact that I am 18 weeks pregnant. So
Oh, my goodness.
I'm kind of unable to make that overtime or side job work.
What if
Wow.
you did something from home?
I guess I haven't really considered anything from home, but
I just think that I sympathize with where you're at, but I don't think that you have a lot of choices because you're at a $600 deficit. And now we've got the fuel in the fire of, You're bringing another human into this world. And I don't know what that's going to look like for you, maternity leave with this new job, but now's the time to get crazy into it, you know.
Do you have a support system, Jennifer? Are there people in your life?
I have a roommate, and that's about it.
Okay. I'm guessing Dad's not in the picture.
No.
Okay. So you're on your own on this outside of the roommate, which is helping with expenses, essentially, to cut those in half.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to need a long-term game plan, and I think you're going to need support. And maybe that's with a church community. Maybe that's even moving closer to family. But this is going to be hard to do on your own, especially with your income is where it's at. And doubling your income is going to help a ton. I have faith that, what is your total debt load if you had to lay it all out, all the loans combined?
I think it's about 56,000.
Okay. So you'll be making 80 with 56 in debt. I think this is a solvable problem. If you can throw, 20, 25 a year at this thing, you'll be done within about 2.5 years.
Absolutely.
And so this is not a life sentence, but the income going up is essential, and then figuring out how we balance all this with getting more income in a temporary is essential. And I don't think you're living frivolously right now, but choices were made. Let's just say that when it comes to all this debt. And that part, I wish there was solvable problems here, but you need a car to get around in. You're way underwater on it. Yeah. I don't think she can't go to a credit union with her shot credit and go ask for the difference.
Yeah. Well, she can try and see what her options are, because honestly, owing 10,000 is better than owing 30. So see what your options are, dig into that. Just understand that you're going to need something to drive if you end up selling that car. So that either that's a $5,000 cash car, but either way, some really tough changes are going to have to take place. And we're just going to be honest with you. It's not going to be easy, especially with the baby, but that doesn't mean you can't do it. You're very strong, and you're stronger than you realize. All right.
Should we go to the chat?
Let's go to the chats here. Tom says to us, he says, please talk about funds, how to set them up, and especially how to use them. What do I do with them each month? So funds, let's pull that up, Bobby. Funds are a way that you can save up money for things that you know are coming up, whether it's a life insurance payment or it's a home repair or a car repair or Christmas, because we know that Christmas comes on the same day every year, George, and we can save up money for it.
And EveryDollar makes it really easy to create one of these funds. There's a little piggy bank next to it. And so all you need to do is you'll click into that budget line item. You'll go to fund. You'll say, make this a fund. And then you add in, hey, what's the original balance? Do you have any money in this fund currently? Let's say we're starting with 0. And the target amount is, if it's life insurance, let's say it's $500 a year. And so our goal is to save $500 12 months from now for that, when that annual life insurance bill hits. And so now we can set aside that money. Let's say it's,
$50.
Yeah, $50 a month. That'll get us to $600 for the year. And now we know we're going to put away that $50 in that fund. Either it'll sit in checking, or we can move it over to savings account and move it back when it's time to pay
Which I would suggest. Now, there's another important discussion to have here. So when we talk about set funds aside for a second, and I'm going to get back to it, but all of those categories there, right? We got childcare, repairs, maintenance. As we're spending money, those transactions, if you have Bank Connect, are going to pop up, and you'll be able to track them and drag them into that category. And, if you have restaurants, right, and you spend $50 at North Italia, you track the transaction into restaurants, and it would drop down, here and there.
In and out. We have an in-and-out transaction at restaurants, $45.
So that's how you're tracking it. It's important to note that funds are opposite from that. You don't track the transaction. So it's important to know, George, if you go back to funds and you say, hey, my intent is that I'm putting $50 there, once you spend that 50 or transfer that 50, you're going to see it in those transactions, and you can just kind of delete it and say, all right, I did it. And that's how that works. So that's the only one that's a little bit opposite. And I like that it's opposite because it makes us think in a different way.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm laying out, I see what I have in funds in my budget. I've got homeowners insurance because I pay that once a year.
Yeah.
Property taxes, I pay that once a year. I've got vacation.
Yes.
I have, let's see what else. Oh my goodness. Instacart and Shipt and Amazon, a lot of these things that get charged annually, I can break that up and divide it by 12.
Yeah.
And put the monthly payment aside instead of making sure I have all that money the month it hits. So there's two options there you can do. So there are a lot of things, but insurance is a big one. All of those I pay annually because I get a discount if you pay full annually. So I like to do that to save $1, and I just have funds for each of those.
I love that. Love it. Very, very cool. All right, let's go to Craig in Pensacola. What's going on, Craig?
Well, hi guys. How y'all doing today?
Doing good. How are you?
Great. Hey, my question is, when I'm on a biweekly paycheck and my income comes at the end of the month and crosses over 2 months, how do I account for that in every dollar?
Great question. So let's say today's February 27th. Let's say you got a check today and you're going, hey, do I use that in March or do I use that for the remainder of February?
Correct.
That's the question. Okay.
So let's pull it up. The way I do it, Craig, is most people who get paid bi-weekly, they get paid on the last day of the month and they get paid on the 15th. I set it up to where this check that I'm going to get on February goes to March. And then I also have a check March 15th. So I've got 2 checks coming in from my end. And so in that way, I guess one of the checks is in arrears to that month, but technically it's not. Think of it as the first of the month because most of your bills are going to be due before the end of the month. So if you
and
wait,
a lot of bills
you're going to
hit
be
on
late.
the first.
Exactly.
So if I get paid on the 30th, I need that money to pay all the bills that's coming on the 1st.
Exactly.
And the 15th helps cover me for the remainder of that month.
Exactly.
So, Craig, when do you get paid, for example?
For example, my last paycheck was the 21st, and the next paycheck is the 6th.
The 21st and the 6th. In that case, I would do a test budget and use paycheck planning, and I'd consider, okay, let's call the 6th the first check and the 21st the second check. And how much is each check?
Yeah. See, they do the dates just change every month.
Oh, they're not consistent
it's not
dates.
always the same.
Right.
So you're irregular in amount and in date.
Correct.
Okay. So in that case, you're still in a good situation. So let's go back to the income spot, Bobby. So when you're putting the checks on there, there's still a place where you can add each month what date you're planning to get paid. Do you know ahead of time what the date will be, or when do you find out? Okay.
No, it's just every other Wednesday.
Every other Wednesday. Okay, so you know ahead of time. You can plug in the date, and you know you're going to get paid twice in the month. And so the good thing about everydollar is you do the budget before the month begins. And so since you can look ahead of time and say, okay, I get paid every other Wednesday, and for you, instead of waiting until, I don't know, one day before the month begins to do your budget, you might do your budget for February 15th, just to kind of be thinking about it and have it set up. So, if you're getting paid on the 7th and the 21st, do your paycheck planning. For you specifically, I think it's going to be very, very worth it for you to have everydollar premium, because being able to do paycheck planning is going to give you a lot of peace. You could do it on pen and paper. I did that for years, but it's kind of a pain in the butt, I'm not going to lie. And it's a lot easier to do it here. And then you can just see, okay, when I get paid on the 7th, what all can I pay from the 7th? That'll get me from the 7th to the 21st. And then the one that you get paid on the 21st, you're going to say, okay, what can I pay that's going to get me from the 21st? And then now it's important to kind of look to that next month and see from the 21st to the 6th, or when I get that next check.
And there might be months where you get 3 checks in a month.
Yeah,
and so
there
you
might
could
be.
you could apply that to your next goal, or apply it to the following month to help you get ahead. But all of that, it just comes down to kind of adjusting where your month is. It may not be the 1st to the 30th for you, and you may want to adjust some bills and say, hey, can I pay this bill on the second Thursday of every month, because I know I'm going to get a check on the Wednesday.
Yeah. And for you, you might have one of those budgets where at the end of the month, you're always saving out a certain amount of money for the next month. Like you always have $600 that has to carry from the previous month to the current month. And that might be part of it for you, which, many budgets are like that, and there's nothing wrong with that. So
every budget is like Snowflake, unique in its own way.
I love that, George. That's very sentimental. All right.
Thank you.
CHS says, Jade, what shoes are you wearing today? I know they're tennis shoes. You be wrong.
Oh.
Hey, look at that.
Wow.
Today was not the day. You should have seen me yesterday. Yesterday I had on some heat. I'm not going to lie. But today was not the day. All right. John Self says, it's not every day that you just get to throw your leg up on a table. Let me just say that.
I can count on 0 fingers how many times I've done that, Jade.
Listen, you have an opportunity right now, George.
I don't think I could do that. I'm not that flexible. I'll keep my legs where they should be.
I may have pulled a hammy.
Below the camera angle. Nobody wants to see these bad boys. These chicken legs. All right, here's John Self's question. Give us an example of what it looks like to use the spent and remaining tabs to simulate paying a bill using those tools. That's a great question. So, Bobby, pull up that everydollar budget, and let's track a transaction and see what the spent and remaining categories turn into. So you'll see here we have our planned and remaining. And if you click, there's a little arrow, Bobby, next to remaining. What does that do when you click that arrow? So you can see spent versus remaining. So you can kind of flip the script on how much is remaining versus how much you've spent. And so some people like the different views.
What do you go with?
I tend to do remaining because
Me too.
I like to know kind of like where things are at.
I agree.
Like, I don't care that I spent $250 on groceries. I want to know, do I have money left?
Me too. I'm the same.
You know, different strokes for different folks. So you can see here, let's say, what's a popular category? Can we try like groceries? That feels like
that's a good one.
Because usually if it's one expense like internet, I know exactly how much internet's going to be, and there's not a lot to
That's right.
worry about there. So right now in groceries, we're about to spend $75 from Kroger's. We track the transaction.
So we
groceries.
spent $150 for the month.
Spent $150 so far. Remaining, though, if you click over, $450. So
Love
it just flips it and does the math for you there, which is nice. Do we have any other grocery transactions? And if you go into, what's cool, if you click into groceries and scroll down, you can see all the transactions you've tracked so far. So currently, there was 2 Kroger transactions for $75 each.
Yep.
And therefore, we've spent $150. And because our grocery budget was $600, we're down to $450. So let's say we add another one for $45 in groceries, and we track that expense.
Perfect.
Boom. Now we're down to $405 remaining. And then if you click over to spend, it's going to show you it added to our $150. Now we've spent $195. So
Love it.
It's a very simple way, and you can toggle between the views to check out spent versus remaining. But I love that question.
All right, let's take another one. We've got Adrian. I love this question, Adrian. She says, do I really need to pause investing to pay off debt? The answer is yes, but let's talk about why. At the end of the day, it's all about having money left in your budget so that you can throw that extra money to whatever baby step you're on. So Bobby, yet again, let's pull up that budget. Let's look at the budget. So let's go up to the income, and let's just look at, this is an average income, $3,000.
And this is net take home.
This is net take home. So let's pretend that this was your pay. This is what you're receiving in your bank account after you've had your automatic money go into retirement. And let's say, George, that she has a 5% match. So she's been putting away $150.
Yeah. Does Bobby know the gross income here? I'm going to get, because right now that's about $75,000 take home pay. So I'm guessing this income is about $120,000 or so, give or take. Does that sound fair? 110 grand. And so let's say their income was 110 grand, and
Okay.
they were both investing 5% to the match.
Okay, make it complex, George. Go into it.
So 110 grand, and she's got 5% coming out. That's 5,500. He's got 5% coming out. That's 5,500. So that's $11,000 out of that income that they're now.
You're saying for the year.
Yeah. Well, now let's say that because they're both making 110.
Let's look at it for the month so she can see how much this is going to affect her budget.
So if they're investing 5% of their household income of 110, that's 5,500. So 5,500 divided by 12, you could have an extra $458 in your take-home pay every single month to budget with.
Let's add that in. Let's add that $458 bucks. So that'd be like $225 per check.
Pause investments equals $458 of income every month.
Now,
so
when
that's
you see
going to help
that,
you pay off some debt.
Well, number one, they're no longer over budget, whoever this person is.
Oh, yeah.
But $450, guys, that's a little bag. Like, that's a lot of money. Sometimes we look at chunks of money, and when we want it to be a lot of money, it's a lot of money. But when we want it to not matter, we tell ourselves that it doesn't matter. So we have to be consistent in our thinking and say $450 is either money that matters or it doesn't matter, right? And so in this case, it matters. Yes, it matters because you have the opportunity to build compound interest and you have the ability to, save retirement. But if you do this in the wrong order and you don't pay off your debt, you have more risk in your life. And when you have more risk in your life and you don't have 3 to 6 months of expenses, people dip into their retirement. It happens all the time. I was on the Ramsey show yesterday, George, and a young lady called in. She didn't have any savings. She came on hard times. She emptied all of her retirement to pay off her car because her car was giving her so much stress. And
That's
so
painful.
It is so important, if you're walking the baby steps, walk them in order. The first one, you've got to save $1,000. After that, You've got to pay off all of your debt except your mortgage. And we do say to pause investing to do that. We say to change your withholding so that you're not getting a tax return in order to do that. We say to check up on your insurance to make sure you're paying the right amounts on your insurance. All of this is so that you can find margin so that you can pay off that debt as quickly as possible. And then you save up 3 to 6 months of expenses. And then and only then is when you invest. And we say 15% on top of whatever your match is.
That's what people don't realize, Jade, is they're going, well, I'm investing 5%. I don't want to lose that. I'm like, you're already losing because you should be investing triple that if you want to retire with any amount of dignity and nest egg. And so it's twofold for me. Number one, you get money back in your life when you pause investing to attack the debt faster.
Yes.
Because we want this to be a short time of sacrifice, not 10, 15 years of trying to pay off debt.
That's right.
Instead, it's 2 years where we know we're going to pay off this debt.
Yeah, pedal to the metal.
And the other piece of this is it lights a fire under you to get back to investing.
That's right.
Because you're angry.
Yeah.
Because you're not building wealth. And you should be, because debt is stealing from your income.
That's right.
And so when you pause investing, you go, I really want to get back. I'm willing to get that side job. I'm willing to sell the car. I'm willing to liquidate the savings account in order to get that debt out of my life so I can get back to investing. Not a measly 5% for the match, but 15%.
That's a good word, George. So hopefully that helps. Let's round this out with a question from Gail Thielen. She says, let's see. What was that?
That was the next one. We got Phil.
Phil.
Can my wife and I share the app so we can both use it on the same budget? Love that. Yes. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the beauty of this. This is why we love this as opposed to a paper budget that you do on a legal pad.
Or God forbid, the Excel spreadsheet. Listen, there rarely is 2 accountants in a marriage. Now, that they exist, and they both like to look at a spreadsheet. Likely in the marriage, there's one person who has never opened Excel and one who is only opening Excel.
Right.
And they always marry each other. And so I'm telling you right now, guys, nobody wants to look at your Excel spreadsheet.
No, do an every dollar budget. It's on your phone. It's in your pocket. It's on your desktop. Both of you. It changes in real time so that if one of you makes a change, the other person sees it. It's very, very good.
It's not a file on a computer somewhere.
Right. That's right.
It's in the palm of your hand wherever you go. I love that.
Okay, Gail is back. Here's the real question. She says, hey, how can I rewatch this later? And I think that's a good one to end on, George. If you want to watch this later, tell them how they can.
Well, it's going to be sitting right here on the Ramsey Show YouTube channel, so you can always come back and watch that. You can send a link to a friend who you think might enjoy that. And make sure you subscribe to our channel so you don't miss more live streams like this. This is a newer thing we're doing, to do these kind of custom bonus live streams outside of the Ramsey Show. And it's been a lot of fun doing these. And there's also some great resources, Jade, for people to dig into once we're done here.
That's right.
Number one, we have a whole hub for budgeting at ramseysolutions.com/budgeting. Tons of free articles and resources. And I pull those up a whole lot to go, hey, what are the budget percentages? Hey, how do I deal with irregular income? Our team works really hard to create so many great blog articles to help people out. And then the other one is actually start budgeting. Go to everydollar.com/free. It's one thing to hear this all and go, yeah, I love that. Live on less than you make. Yes, build wealth with margin. But if you're not budgeting, you can't do it. So go to everydollar.com/free. Get started for free today and start to use it. And it's okay if you screw up.
That's right.
It's not the end of the world.
And listen, we talked a lot about premium. If you have the free version and you're interested in premium, you can go to everydollar.com/Jade and you can get $15 off of premium and just test it out for a while. See if you like it.
Annual membership.
Yeah. And for just general questions, if you want to talk to us, if you want to email us your questions, you can email us at ask.ramseysolutions.com. Ask at ramseysolutions.com.
Want to make sure
George
they get there.
Camel.
I'm here for you, Jay. This has been fun.
At ramseysolutions.com. This has been fun. I love it.
Thank you to all of the YouTubers out there watching and in the live chat. Love you guys. Appreciate you tuning in and share it with friends. And most of all, budget for life if you want a great life.
Faux life.
That's what I say.
Budget life. Tattooed across your belly, just like Tupac.
We'll see you guys soon.